That was beautiful.
That's peculiar. Yeah.
That was something. Wow. Okay. Well, welcome in everyone to the Unscrupulousness podcast. This is your host, as always, Jake Curtis. And with me, as always, is the one and only, truly talented MD Keifer Walsh. Happy week 5, 6, 6, 7,
7. I think it isn't
7.
it. Yeah, it's 7. It's week 7.
It is.
Week 7,
Episode
episode 7.
7.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and change that. All right.
Flash you up here.
Oh wow, we're switching sides.
I have to do that
to
get your intro up there.
Gosh, I like that. Owner, founder. Anyways, we're going to start things off a little bit differently this time around. We're going to start with some burning, must-be answered questions, and this is sort of going to be a little bit of a tell. We're going to show the listeners out there what we're going to be discussing, and hopefully, potentially, what we're going to be answering and what we're going to be figuring out on the episode. So, some things that happened from week 6 to 7 left us with these questions. First one: how much have the tiers changed? Have they? I don't know. We'll look into that. A follow-up to that: how many tiers does Keifer Walsh have left? Yeah, so that's going to be it's going to be good to dive into. Is Dan's early season success sustainable? And certainly that's been a topic of mine throughout the first 6 episodes of this podcast. And we're going to get some
keep
answers
asking
to
it.
that. And
we're going to keep asking it until he answers it for us.
Join us, Dan. You know where we are. You know where to find us. We put our address there every week. So until we'll have to answer it for him. Anyways. And then finally, is this turning into a 4-man race? Have we narrowed the field from 8 to 4 already? And could we even narrow it down to 2? Is that too soon? Is it too soon to call a 2-pony horse race? Speaking of ponies, SMU hat here. Did you notice?
Nice. Yeah. Well, like 55-0, right, or something like that.
55-0. Yeah, first shutout at Temple in since the 70s. Gosh, this is an awkward setup, but yeah, 55-0. Anyways, yeah. So without further ado, we'll get right into it, and let's hit it with the. Unless you have anything to
add. Man, those are good questions.
Thank you. I would look myself.
I'm trying to think of any off the top of my head, and we're going to talk about trades. So, are these trades going to make a difference? Yeah. I think that's a good question to answer. And then, does defense matter? I'm going to bring up defense. I'm going to bring up IDPs. I'm going to slide IDPs into talking points at some point in every single episode without overtly doing a segment about defense matters, because that was the voted most unpopular segment last year. So that incriminating myself.
Hey, we're trying
to keep it out this year. Yeah,
we're tinkering, we're experimenting, we're trying some things. All right, so let's start off with the around the league in 5 minutes. Keifer, take it away.
It's getting bigger than 5 minutes, by the way. I broke this down into really the 3 things. So I do have around the NFL some headlines, but I want to talk about trade alerts, and then I want to talk about some waiver wire happenings, because we got some interesting action over the week. Let's start with the trade, though. So for 2 weeks in a row, after I think I went 3 years without a single trade, I made another trade. I made it with Sam, and I'm gonna love to hear your take on this, but. In general, I was looking for an RB3 this week, and so I offloaded Mixon, who's on a bye, who's currently the RB18, to Sam for the other B. Robinson, Brian Robinson Jr., who's RB16, with a little bit of spice for Jameson Williams. So Mixon for Robinson and Jameson Williams. What are your thoughts? What were your thoughts when this went through?
Who is the other B. Robinson? Bijan,
yeah.
Bijan, yeah.
Bijan,
okay. Yeah. The significantly slower other B. Robinson, the one that was shot.
Bullet ridden, right.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay.
No,
I thought that this, obviously when you open your phone or you get a notification, there's been a trade that's been accepted in your league. My reaction, I don't know if this is the reaction of everyone, but my reaction is panic. I just immediately go into yeah, state of just
It
disarray.
is anxiety
Panic.
provoking.
It's panic. Yeah. And obviously the greatest fear is that someone has made a move that changes things, right? And affects me and makes my team more susceptible to losing. I don't think this trade does that. I don't think that this trade moves the needle in a meaningful way in either direction. There's that phrase, a trade to trade. Are we just, you talk to someone for weeks on end and then finally you decide to do something. You're like, are we just doing this to do it? No, I like the running backs. Jameson Williams, I like the potential, obviously. He's a first rounder, and he had an amazing, at least a year at Alabama. And I think that national championship game, he scored a couple of touchdowns, but hasn't really showed much in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, Mixon's getting older. Robinson's getting slower. And so it's going to be an interesting or not interesting trade to watch pan out. Am I being mean? Am I being mean?
No, I think this is one of the more boring trades that you could possibly do, and I think it was this is kind of the fork and spoon trade. If you think about just trying to make something happen, and it wasn't really. I will say it was not a trade to do trades. I think this was literally just a trade so I could start somebody against Tom.
Exactly.
That wasn't Kareem Hunt.
100%. I like the trading away a bye week player. That's strategy, and I like that a lot. And you're essentially trading for the same player, but you're getting a week. Now, has Robinson played he had a bye yet?
No, he has not.
Okay. So obviously, like that, when you're able to trade away a player on a bye when they've already played a bye, and so you don't have to have a bye for the two players mentioned. But regardless, know when Robinson's bye is or who you have playing. But that we're getting into the weeds here a bit.
Yeah, I think what Sam gets. So Sam gets Joe Mixon, who is going to put up between 16 to 21 points every single week, which is an RB4 to 3, and he's a good functional RB3 for buys. So he will get that in the future. And I get somebody to play this week. Like I said 2 weeks ago, I just need to get a win every single week for the next few weeks to get myself back into a position. And then Jameson Williams is purely a flyer who may never play for me unless Detroit gets injuries to Josh Reynolds and Marvin Jones or Amon Ra. But I think ESPN or IBM Watson, I should say, ended up grading this out in favor of Sam 83 to 76, but their grade on both of our running backs, so Brian Robinson and Joe Mixon, were both 88. So essentially swapped running backs. I did put some notables here. So Mixon's snap percentage is 74%. He plays 74% of snaps for the Bengals. Brian Robinson plays 49%. So much less field time. However, the utilization rate and the target rate is significantly different. So Brian Robinson's touch rate is 45% to Mixon's 40%. So a little bit of an edge. And then his utility rate, which is basically like touches plus targets, is 46% to Mixon's 41%. So he does get a little bit of an edge in terms of how much Washington uses him, but just not on the field with the offense like Joe Burrow's Bengals. So I don't know. That's trying to make something interesting out of a trade that is incredibly uninteresting.
Yeah. And now we've talked about that uninteresting trade for about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
so
we might have to stop this episode. We're coming up on an hour here.
That's all we have.
Let's move on from it. Do you have any other talks about anything you want to bring up just in terms of potential trades on the horizon?
Oh gosh, I've been talking to a couple of different owners, lowballing everyone, sending out feelers. And I was talking to Ned this week. I hate trades. Like I typically don't initiate trades. But some people have been initiating trades. And so the thing for me is once I start thinking about trades, I essentially have to create a redraft. It's like mid-year redraft valuations. Like, what do I, not only like how much do I value my players, but how much do I value other players in the league? And then if I'm going for this guy, well, then do I value someone else on a different roster more? And it ends up being this like endless Pandora's box, decision fatigue. I can't like commit to a trade unless I know it's the best possible outcome from all of the other 6 teams I'm dealing with. Does that make sense? And so
Yeah.
for me, it's just exhausting. It's exhausting. And so I typically just shy away from it. But also like Ned and I were talking, Ned's like fighting for his life and I'm, in first or second place given a week. And so like I'm in this position to be really, really picky. And I also don't have a lot of depth, which we've talked about at great length in our show. So I don't have a whole lot to bargain with. And that's, I think, changing, and we can get into my running back situation a little bit. But I think that there are some more playable guys coming up on my bench. But trades are not easy.
No, and the thing you don't want to do is to trade yourself out of first or second place. And that's the concern is
100%.
you give up because you do not need any of these guys. And you're looking for potential talent or potential depth or whatever the potential is that you're looking for. But the easiest thing to do when you don't need to trade is to force a trade that puts you in a position where you lose ground on somebody else. So, which is what I was hoping to do to Tom last week, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. So,
and we'll see. And we don't have to wait any longer because you two are playing this week.
Yeah, we sure are. We'll get into that later. Let me just run through the waiver wire happenings real quick, and then just a real quick second on some NFL headlines. But notable waiver wire ads. So with Kyren Williams out, Ned picked up Zach Evans for $44. He did outbid me to get Luke Musgrave back for $2. I spent $32 on Kareem Hunt. Tim grabbed Rashee Rice for $9. Wide receiver 1 ? In Kansas City. 2 headlines I thought were interesting. So Jake feeling a little moody. What are you just betting on the underdog? What was the thought process behind grabbing the game losing kicker?
Well, I missed out on the Thursday night kicker. I think you picked him up. Is that correct?
The Saints?
Yeah.
The guy that's 5'7", 145 pounds.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a story a couple weeks ago how he showed up to the team facility and they wouldn't let him in because they didn't realize he was a player on a team.
Oh my gosh! I don't. I didn't even know who he was. But I tried to pick him up. Actually, tried to pick up. Gosh, was it Dustin Hopkins? No. Is that right? The Browns kicker?
Maybe, because I put a bid on him too, and I didn't get him. So
yeah, that's right.
Popular guy.
I ended up with Boswell, but yes, it was Dustin Hopkins. I don't know why that name doesn't sound right to me right now, but it doesn't. I tried to get him. So this is like kicker number 3. Don't have a whole lot of options at this point. But it's sort of like a hedge my bet since I've got Christian McCaffrey and Kittle. I don't know if Christian's going to play, but hedging my bets here. If the 49ers aren't scoring a touchdown, then maybe Jake Moody can kick a field goal in the middle of the uprights this time.
It's a Monday night, and I hate primetime games for fantasy, except for sometimes IDPs and kickers, because it's like a slower, more conservative game. So Thursday night, I love getting the Saints kicker. And then Monday Night Football, like the Vikings and the 49ers is not a fun game, but I bet you that San Francisco will play more conservatively and get some field goals. So, and I don't have any data to back me up on that.
No, go all gut. No, I hate Thursday nights for everyone, but yeah, IDPs, and we can certainly talk about my IDP. Yeah, IDP will play Thursday. Whew. Good
Incredible.
Lord. Yeah.
Last headline here. So Dan can't pick it. Quarterback 4. You sent me a text about this when he added on Thursday. He added Kenny Pickett, and then he didn't last long. He must have come in and failed the physical for Dan.
Yeah, didn't make it.
But he dropped him the next day. So, and he is averaging 10.5 points.
Yeah. Dan, I've got Matthew Stafford. I've been pushing Matthew Stafford in a number of trades simply because my week 10, both of my starting quarterbacks are out. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the pod, but both of my starting quarterbacks are out week 10. Matthew Stafford also has a bye on week 10. So Matthew Stafford as a backup quarterback on my squad does me absolutely no good. So if anyone's out there willing to swap backups, Matthew Stafford, who I see as one of the top tier backup fantasy quarterbacks out there, simply because Cooper Kupp is back. I think he's going to start throwing more touchdowns. He's available. He's on the block.
Okay.
Dan.
Well, Dan, or I'll tell you who I've got. I've got a guy who's got Atlanta in week 10, the guy that you tried to pick up previously, aeronautical engineer in college, as we keep showing on every game that he ever plays in, Josh Dobbs. So maybe we'll have to chat.
God, I would love Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, well, he could be yours. Around the NFL, some quick headlines. So there are no more undefeated teams in the NFL. So big games last week. Browns edging out the 49ers and Jets beating the Eagles on some Hurts bonehead plays. There's a lot of don't seem to be. You still hear me?
You cut out, but now you're back.
Okay, I think my headphones disconnected. It gave me like 3 alerts. We'll get back in. The 49ers injuries all adding up. They had Christian McCaffrey, Debo, and Trent Williams all went out, but it looks like they're all going to play, probably. So avoided some long-term injuries there. And then, which affect you the most, right?
Yeah.
The Eagles signing Julio Jones to his 4th pit stop after his Falcons career, right? He's in Tampa, he was in Tennessee, and now he's in Philly. He's trying to get a ring anywhere he can. Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you for that. So moving on from that, we're gonna look back. We're gonna look back at the week in review. It seems a little bit late recording on a Saturday before kickoff, but we're gonna run through this real quick, and then we can spend the majority of the time looking ahead. But last week, we'll start with my game against Garrett. Again, I think going into it, I'd said that I was 5-0 against Garrett. Every single week I had scored more than Garrett, even in the week that he scored the most and I scored the least. So I cruised with the victory here, 266 to 218. My takeaway is I would have only beaten 3 teams in the league. And so obviously as a team that is aspiring to win the fantasy championship, it's not good enough. Okay. It's not good enough. It's not going to get it done. We're gonna need more. So, go back to the drawing board and see if I can't rally the troops. Big game against Dan this week, so hopefully we can do more.
It's funny you took kind of the glass half empty approach and saying that you would have only beat 3 teams this week. I, on the other hand, said you won, but you had your worst week yet, and you still scored the 3rd most points. So there's two ways of looking at it. But you and I both picked Garrett in this game because I think we're really pulling for him. But he lost David Montgomery really early in that game, only got 4 points out of him, and that wouldn't have been, likely wouldn't have been enough to get it for him. But he still just can't get good quarterback play. It's just like things are close to clicking for him, but just haven't quite yet. So, you and I both picked him. ESPN had picked you by a 33-point margin. So at the end of the day, they ended up ESPN being ended up getting the victory on that one.
Yeah. So, and we both had Garrett. That's interesting. I certainly remember me picking Garrett. But yeah,
I think I did. I think I was excited about him.
I want to continue to look at our bold prediction earlier that he was going to have 3 top 15 running backs and finish last. So I want to keep track of that. Now that might not come to fruition now that Montgomery is going to be out. Potentially. So he's out this week. I think they've already made that known. Next week they only have 1 game before their bye, so it's most likely that they'll keep him out another week. And then he'll
come back. Yes. So currently he is 14th, Kamara's 17th, and just going to keep going up. And then Pacheco's 12th. So it's holding true so far. But we're keeping track of the bold claims, and we're keeping ourselves accountable in this podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's jump into the next matchup here. So my game against Sam, man, and looking ahead here, you did pick Sam. I picked myself, but I said that Sam was going to win, which makes no sense at all. ESPN had picked Sam by 27 points, and it ends up being a bit of a disappointment for Sam. He put up 239 points, and I put up 282.7. Technically, ESPN still owes me 2 points for Max Crosby.
They still haven't.
They still haven't had it. And I've texted you, I think, almost daily about how upset I was.
Yes.
I am due 2 points for Max Crosby's safety in this one. Twitter, I didn't put up pictures. I was going to, but people are freaking out on Twitter with Yahoo and ESPN Sports saying, "Where are my 2 points?" So it's not just me out there. And we'll see if it matters in the end. But man, the pessimistic take here is that despite putting up 282 for 284, I really limped along. So Ned looks like the early winner in this trade that I had with him because Justin Fields dislocated his throwing thumb. He is week to week, which you don't see that very often because he can't grip a football. And then Justin Taylor. Who's Justin Taylor?
JTT?
Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Yeah. Jonathan Taylor and Joe Mixon both had 13 points each. So I sent one of them packing. And another interesting note here, which goes to our argument earlier, I had no players on primetime. I didn't have anybody on Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night. How weird is that? So it's just all daytime Sunday game, which is the best way to do it. You just have to watch football for about 5.5 hours, which I didn't. I did much more than that. But and then the other thing I was proud of my team for, my IDPs averaged 15 points. So I was
that's incredible. 15 points from your defense, every guy. That is a mark right there.
It's going to help.
Yeah. So all I wanted to add was the new look bees. Okay, we have like 2 trades going into this game, and so 282 by far your best game this season. Is that correct?
Yeah, by like 20 points.
Yeah. So,
and I'm glad that you mentioned the new look bees because not only did we get a new logo this year, we got ourselves a new kit. And repping the brand, the Unscrupulousness Fantasy Podcast. How about that, huh?
That's incredible.
Not going to say how much it cost me because it was definitely not worth it. But
is there a link down below? Is there something we can click on to get one of those?
No. You want one of these?
Well,
you don't want your own?
I want podcast shirts. I want all 6 of our listeners out there to wear one. So something we'll look into.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, moving on to Ned and Dan. Ned escapes here, scoring 230 points, but gets the win by more than 30 points because Dan lays an egg here, 196.3, which sounds like a radio station. I'm sure it is, 196.3. So this is sort of what I've been saying all year, and we're just going to cut to the chase here. I don't think Dan's team is as good as his record shows, okay? So he was, 4-1 going into this game. He was riding high. He was like in second place or whatever. But the points forced and the points allowed just didn't add up, right? So he's not scoring a whole lot of points, and he's not getting scored on a lot, right? So he's just in this sweet spot where he's getting away with it. And that all came to a screeching halt, a giant crash with Ned beating him by only scoring 330 points. So obviously he's got some injuries, so that hurts him. But this is sort of the regression that I was waiting for, that I was anticipating. I wrote something here like 4 days ago that I have no idea. And as I was writing it out, I was like, this doesn't make sense. And so I'm not, maybe I should read it and we should, let's go ahead and do it.
All right. I'll close my eyes so I can really try to get into this here.
Yeah. Dan's points allowed only increased by 196, which is the amount he scored. Okay. Which widens his league leading gap on being the team scored on the least. Does that make sense?
No, not really.
I wrote in the notes. Does that make sense? I wrote that in the production notes.
It widens his league leading gap on being the team scored on the least. So he gives up, quote unquote, 229 points, and he's giving up the least amount of points. So the fact that he only got outscored by 30, but they're both low, he's still by far the league leading team for points against. Is that what that
I
means?
don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. It's it sounds accurate, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah. And there was like 1,000 different ways to write that where it would make more sense, and I didn't choose any of those. But the standings, I once we get into the standings talks, I think
it'll make more sense.
Become a little bit more clear. Yeah.
Well, this matchup was this was eerily similar, spooky if you will, to a week 4 matchup of Garrett and me. So Ned 229, Dan 196. Me in my game, Garrett 229, me 199. So pretty much close. Where I needed that win, and if you lose to a team that scores 229 points, that's the worst you could feel about yourself. And so Ned sneaks away with one, and that was Garrett's only win. So Dan losing this one was really big. This was huge for Ned's chances in the playoffs, which we'll get to. We'll get to later. I mean, absolutely huge. And just put simply, I mean, Dan is hurt by not having Devon Chan and Justin Jefferson. And then last week I praised Dan for having 15 points average for IDP. This week 7.9. So I mean, let's see. That's a 7-point difference per IDP. 7 times 6, that would have been the gap. So you got to have your defense go up.
That's the gap.
That's the gap.
That's the gap. So does defense matters in this game?
Absolutely.
The answer is yes. Absolutely.
And we all 3 of us, so you, me, and ESPN up in Connecticut, we all had Ned on this one.
Yeah.
So
their margin significantly thinner than mine. But it's close.
Man, let's round it out with the Clorox Bleach and Blue Toilet Cleaner Brother Bowl. Man, I wish I had that up here still. The game of the week, Tim and Tom. Tom 274 gets the win against Tim 237. He actually, Thomas sent me a picture of them watching it together, snuggled up under a blanket on the couch. Yeah, just a wholesome moment. Adorable. But I can't imagine that they stayed on that couch for long, because Tom just laid a beat down on Tim here. I don't even think that Tom missed Mostert this year. He had 4 running backs with 20 points or more. That's insane. I can't buy a running back.
He was coming off of a week where he had 3 50-point running backs, correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's crazy. And just on the other side of the ball, Tim, just too many mistakes to overcome for him. Kirko Chains got the bench this week, but Kirk put up 6 points. Let's see. Gino had 12 points. Rashad White only had 26 yards for Tim. Myles Garrett had 3.5 points. He had a kicker with a big goose egg from that primetime Buffalo Bills game. Just a bummer for Tim, my preseason most talented team of the year, and Thomas just put us both to shame on this one.
Yeah, no, Tom's playing the best football right now. But it's interesting to see if he can sustain this. It seems like he's peaking in sort of mid-season. So we'll see if he can.
I mean, or he's just
to the top.
I don't know. Have we seen the mountaintop for Thomas yet?
Well, 274 is not the mountaintop for Tom so far. I think he's had the 2 highest scoring.
Well, I guess you're right. Right, he's gone from 3. I mean, I sent him a text early in the day, and I was like, "You might score 350 points this week," because he was projected like 340 at one point.
No way, projected at 340?
Like 330s or something like that, and that's when I got that couch text back. But he came back down to earth.
Lord, I don't know if I've ever seen that. Yeah. The only thing I wanted to add here is that the Devontae trade happened before kickoff, so it was Tom's first game playing with Devontae. Excuse me. And his quarterback almost broke his back, damn near broke his back. So Jimmy Garoppolo leaving the game, but apparently the prognosis is good in that he didn't break his back, and that he dodged a bullet, and so he's likely to return at some point this year. But Devontae's the squeaky wheel. He's going to get about 30 targets this week, and he's gonna explode. Yeah. So no more Jacoby Myers.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. But Devontae typically gets his way, which is great. I love Devontae Adams. Yeah. But yeah, we'll get to that later. I think I didn't say 30 targets, but I'm pretty close on my prediction for that one. Yeah. All 3 of us, again, you, me, and ESPN, we all had Tom in this one. ESPN, pretty good. They had a 39-point spread, and this one ended up being a 38-point game. That's weird.
That's weird.
So you went 2-2 this week. Both ESPN and myself went 3-1. So that's going to bring the final prediction standings. I am at 13-7. The only thing I can seem to win at. Jake, you are 11-9, and then ESPN is 9-11. So
Okay.
awesome. Oh, awards.
Yeah, we'll take it.
You want to give us some awards?
Yeah.
Yes, we should.
Yeah, let's do it.
Adam
let's do it.
Vinatieri Award. So most points scored by a single player. Love to see it. Raheem Mostert, 45.7 points for me this week. Loved it. The Dak Quarterback Sneak Award. I just went in ahead. I went in and did this about an hour ago without doing a whole ton of research, but I have a hard time not giving this award to the team that scores the least. And unfortunately, I didn't this week. So Ned beat Dan, but I actually gave it to Ned because he dropped Chuba. What are we calling him?
Chuba.
Okay.
Chuba, I think.
Chuba Hubbard would be.
That's what his teammates call him.
I think that's the late 90s band, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard. So Ned dropped him on Friday. Tom, not Tim. Tom went ahead and picked him up on Saturday for $11, and then he goes and scores 25 points for Tom.
Yeah.
Which if Ned would have hung on to him, he would have been good for like an RB2, RB3. Well, I think RB3 value, but he's lucky he got away with a win on this one because we're going to give him the Dax QB Sneak Bonehead Week award of the week, move of the week.
Sneak Award of the week.
Okay. These are good. We got to make better trophies next year. All right. The Battle of the Thermopylae Award. The highest scoring team goes to me for 282.7, 284.7.
Well deserved.
The West End Ticklers Memorial Award. This goes to Dan for 196.3. And then the last two, based on records, the 2008 Patriots Nearly Perfect Award is a 4-way tie with 4, 4, and 2 teams. That is our current playoff teams right now. So Jake, Tom, Tim, and Dan. And then, of course, bringing up the rear here, the 2023 Bears Nearly Perfect Award is going to go to Garrett at 1-5.
Nearly Defeated Award. Nearly Defeated.
Oh, yeah. Nearly perfect at being defeated.
Nearly perfectly defeated.
Right.
Garrett.
Yeah.
Gosh, when will he win again? Oh boy. I hope it's soon.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I mean, we're doing pretty good on time. We're at 33 minutes.
Let's do it.
Do you want to try this?
I want to do it. Let's try it.
Hold on just one tick here. Man, not to put too much pressure on ourselves, but you let me know when you hear this music, and we're gonna jingle in an ad. Man, I'm getting the white wheel of death here as this thing loads.
Oh man.
We can't let this happen now.
No.
That's okay though.
Not now.
I got a backup. You hear that?
I do hear that.
It's gonna be good live. I was gonna do this to show off my jersey, but all right. Here we go.
Now I can't hear it. I can't hear it at all.
Okay. Awesome. Hold tight. Hold tight. We can always do it music. We're gonna spend 5 minutes trying to figure out the music on
acapella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hum in the background.
I can't.
Okay. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Okay. Anyways, well, this is a little outdated because we're not speaking of good investments anymore. But you know what? Let's. It pays off for Tom to invest in his team and get a W last week. So hey, speaking of good investments, let's go to a quick word from our sponsors, shall we?
We shall. Hey, Keifer, do you invest?
Oh, in this economy? No.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, do me a favor and close your eyes.
Okay.
All right, now put your hand, and here are potentially hundreds of free dollars. Now put out your hand.
Okay.
Okay, put out your hand.
Okay.
And here are potentially hundreds of free dollars.
Oh, nice.
You're supposed to say what?
What?
You should not close your eyes during this, this reading. Okay.
Right.
All right, now you can close them.
Okay.
Are you a fantasy owner who recently walked away from your fantasy draft with dollars unspent? Don't fret. Whether you are seeking some extra dough to sign that fantasy stud to a multi-year contract or facing the imminent challenges of retirement, professionals at Vanguard are here to help. Invest now using the code Unscrupulousness Fantasy Podcast 2023 and get an additional 10% on us when you contribute to your first fiscal year's Roth or traditional IRA. That's UNSCRUPULOUSNESS. Did you get that?
Could you do that again? I wasn't writing it
Too
down.
bad. I'm not repeating it.
Okay.
Because our investors are our investors. Vanguard, the trusted name in investing since 1975.
Man, that's great. Yeah,
Gosh, I'm a little disappointed. I should have just blocked your screen out, because like anytime I could sense you being there, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold it in.
That's a big
It's a great
code.
piece of writing there.
Thanks. Yeah.
Gosh.
I wonder if anybody's cashed in on that yet.
I'm sure someone's typing it in right now.
Well, hopefully they can get it done by the end of this episode. All right. Let's
All right.
move
Well,
on
welcome back from the sponsor break. We're gonna now take a turn to previewing the week 4 matchups. It literally says week 4. Good Lord.
Here, let me.
Our production team is just unbelievable. All right, week 7 matchups.
There we go.
We're going to start at the top. We're going to start with the game of the week. And without further ado, that's Dan and I, 4-2 versus 4-2. It's the only 4-2 matchup this week, correct? Yeah, so just by default, it has to be the game of the week. But obviously, I think there's a little bit more here, as I've been talking trash about Dan's team all year. And rightfully so, because again, I'm going to go back to the nice little bar graph that is it a bar? It's a plot. A
whisker plot of some sort.
Yeah, a whisker plot graph. And it shows, the current team that you're playing and all of the previous 6 or 7 weeks.
That one. I see what you're saying.
Totals, right?
Yeah.
And like last week, I was 5-0 against Garrett. This week, I am 5-1. This year, I should say, I am 5-1 against Dan. Okay. So again, this plays into the fact that, hey, we have the same record. Dan and I have the same record. We're both 4-2. It looks like we're even footing, right? But then if you dive down a little deeper, I would have won 5 of 6 games against Dan, right? So again, I think that he's gotten lucky. Let's just say that. So if you dive a little deeper here, stick with me. Week 4, Dan outscored me 276 to 284. It's the only time he beat me this year. Okay. Then you talk about week 2 and 5. Those were close, but week 1 and 6, not even close. Average margin of victory that I would have had over Dan in week 1 and 6, 72 points. The average margin of victory. But
nice. That was a really well-timed mute.
Thank you. Thank you. The good news for Dan is I've got 5 starters on bye, potentially the number 1 fantasy football player of all time out this week. And Dan has 1 player on bye. However, good news for me, that player is his MVP and most prized possession. Cameron Johnston is not.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And as of now, as of me writing the production notes, he had not signed another punter. Did he do that this week?
Nope. I just checked. He is. Well, hold on now. I'll check. He still has him in the starting lineup.
No, there's not a punter on his roster. He is taking it down to the wire here, folks.
I think.
And this is what he's doing. You know what he's doing.
I know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, he is cutting him on. This is a veteran move, and this is how he's going to keep his punter. He is cutting him the day before the games, so it ensures that no one can pick him up until Tuesday of next week, and then he's going to spend $5 to get him back.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen.
That's definitely what's going to happen. Now that I think that's option 1. Now option 2, and bear with me. What if he keeps him in the lineup? He does not play a punter this week, with the thought that if he beats you with Cameron Johnston on his bye this week, he could just rub it in our face for probably the rest of our lives.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now, I think this brings up an important point. Is there something in the record book about not having a full roster?
Yes, there is.
So, yeah, you and I have been on the same wavelength, or a very similar one for the last. It's not always the case here on this podcast, so I just wanted to point that out. But you and I are seemingly reading each other's minds here. Trying to buy some time here for Keifer to pull up the document of all time. So this gets into a broader discussion of roster moves, weekly roster moves and waiver wire pickups, because we've got a lot to talk about. Because Dan, if he does not play a punter, Dan is not the only team this week that will play a not full roster. Ned, and we'll get into that here in a little bit, Ned will not have a complete roster by kickoff on Sunday, and we'll talk exactly about that here in a minute. But first, let's go to the screencast here. We're seeing
rule
Keifer's
looks like 2 tack 1 tack 3 here. So rule 2 tack section 1 tack article 3. Each team is required to carry a full roster to their weekly matchup. Now it does say, and there's a little bit of wiggle room, a pattern of complacency may warrant an owner suspension or penalty. And this was a recent change because it used to be from the salary cap, but
correct.
It's a hit on the
that was when it was originally
right. This is a hit on the so it may warrant an owner suspension, which, man, we're pretty cutthroat.
That was poor.
Yeah,
that was but
or penalty.
But that was poorly written.
Or penalty of $20.
That was poorly.
So I mean, I don't know. There's a couple things here. So, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but a pattern of complacency, which we have to prove, number one.
Define that.
Yeah,
define that.
I have no clue. We're gonna have to go into. We're probably what we'll have to do is in our WhatsApp group, we're gonna have to shut the doors. We're gonna have to turn the lights on and get real uncomfortable for a long period of time as we hash out in the discussion what. Number one, a pattern of complacency means, and then number two, does aforementioned complacency warrant a penalty of $20? So,
because it may,
but there's no guarantee.
But we don't know. Yeah. It may. I mean, gosh, what were we thinking when we wrote that?
I have no clue. Have we done this before? But have we done that? Has that ever?
I don't think it has.
I think so.
And honestly, that rule again was, and you hit the nail on the head there. It was written in a time where we had season-long salary caps, and I'm telling you what, that was wild. That was a wild ride. We did that for how many seasons?
3, maybe. Does that sound about right?
Wow. Yeah, I was thinking 2. But
maybe 2. It may have been 2. But a painful 2. Oh my God.
Yeah, think about that. Think about that. Yeah. For the owners that weren't a part of that, we had a spreadsheet that you had to update with every single free agent. Like, you were responsible for updating your team's live salary cap. So what we had in the draft, right? It was 400 or 200.
$400.
What was it?
Yeah,
it was $400. You're the amount of your. So Tim, that might have been why Tim saved $300 or $34 from the draft this year. Because that would have allotted him that much room to then go out and sign a free agent. So you had to drop guys based on their value that you signed them for in the draft, and you could only pick up to that point.
So, for example, with your Kenneth Gainwell gate, you would have had to drop an equivalent of $90+ of players to be able to add him. But not only do you have to, I mean, it was terrible. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if any other team was doing it. Maybe you were. But week to week, it was either Chase or I just going through and having to scrub the waiver report and update all these teams. And there were penalties. So, like, if you went over your salary cap, there could be a potential, may warrant penalty.
Right.
And
the rule was that you had to be complacent in. You had to be under the salary cap or at it before the games kicked off, right? So you had some wiggle room during the week, and then you had to cut some guys to get under by the end of the week.
And I remember, and I may be wrong here, but I remember 2 different types of warnings that were issued, but I don't know if we ever hit teams. And I remember number one.
No, I think
I think there was a cap warning that went out to Chase, And then I do believe we gave out a warning for complacency on a roster at some point. We just never took the $20 off.
And I'm pretty sure it was Felix. I'm pretty sure it was my friend Felix Gabatuller, who I currently, that was at our first school that we worked at together. And we have now since worked at 3 schools together. And so he continues to follow me.
And just try to get back in your good graces from that warning, probably.
And I actually offered him a roster spot, an ownership in this league again. Obviously, he would have gone through voting process, and I don't know if the league would have wanted it back.
Pretty strict vetting.
I offered him that, and he said no. The league is too complicated for him. So that's not what he said. But I think it was Felix. But again, getting back to that rule, the rule was put in place because there would be an advantage to not starting a punter or a kicker, so you could be under the salary cap. And so we thought that was not within the spirit of the rule. And so we wanted to make sure that there was some language in there that may punish owners if they show a pattern of complacency with starting no kickers or punters.
Incredible.
So this is going to work out well for Dan and Ned, 2 potential owners who will not have a full roster this week, because they have not shown a pattern of complacency. This is a one-time offense, and they most likely may not receive a penalty. But that would be a big one for Dan. He only has 34 free agent dollars left, so that would have been sizable for him.
Well,
let me see what Ned has here quickly.
And he has not been officially warned, but I would say that based on
this, he's got 22.
Ned has $22. Well, then for both of them, I am going to go ahead and say that explicitly, this is not a warning. This is not an issued warning. Typically we draft those on a league a league memo, and we make it public for the record. But that is not
in the mail.
Right, in the mail.
We send those out to
in the mail, and then they get it at some point in the off season. But
and they have to sign it and mail it back.
Right. They have to issue a response too. It's a whole thing. And this is not that, but this is a very informal warning that we
and obviously, since everyone listens, they will have received the warning.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Yeah. And especially this week, they will probably listen in the next 20 hours. So I'm sure they'll get that. So let's make our picks on this matchup, and then we'll move along.
Oh, what are we talking about? The
only reason I remember is because I put the ticker down. I think we're still talking about this first matchup.
Yeah, so obviously Dan wins. That's all I wanted to get to it. I've been talking shit about his team all year.
Yeah.
Obviously Dan wins.
Yeah.
I'm 5-1 against Dan for the season. Obviously, I will be 5-2 by.
You're fresh off your accurate prediction of the worst team in the league beating you, picking Garrett. So clearly Dan is going to win this week. I disagree. I do, and ESPN and I, we made our phone call earlier this morning. We both agree that you are going to win this one. They've got you at a 43-point advantage as of before Thursday night. So I got you in this game.
Yeah, and I think the projections just went up for both of us. I don't think it
like the discrepancy changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's.
I mean, he had this is interesting to note. He got 18.6 out of Taysom Hill, who had a classic game. Taysom, again, the only tight end, or Dan and I are the only owners that have ever owned him in the last 2 years. We love Taysom Hill. I dropped him. He picked him up. And it was that weird, you remember that the waiver wire in the beginning? It was the first week. It was right after the draft. I picked him up. And Dan got him instead of me because there was a trade out or something. And he was a gentleman enough to drop him. And then I picked him up for $1.
Wow. Interesting.
So anyway.
Well, he had a huge game. He was in the game a lot. So let's move on. We are going to jump to my matchup. There's the ticker change. Good time. So Thomas 4-2 on the road, taking on my team 2-4. Now we don't have a bowl game. This is the only week where we don't actually have an official bowl game. And I tried to go down and break down how many and I'll be quick with this. How many teams have different bowl games? Everybody's in 2 bowl games for the year, except Dan and I are both in 1 bowl game. But unfortunately, we're not playing this week. So it would have tilted the scales to make any of these bowl games. That being said, I think a fun in-season recognition of this game is you could call this the trade bowl. You call this the Devontae Mostert Bowl. Or I'm playing Jonathan Taylor. He's looking to start Zach Moss. You could call this the Colts backfield bowl, which is so unexciting.
Yeah.
But
Backfield bowl has a nice ring, though.
backfield bowl does. The alliteration's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So, man, this is going to be an interesting game. ESPN did initially have Tom at a 32-point advantage, but I had a decent Thursday night. I picked up a D lineman who got 10 points, and then I picked up the Saints kicker who actually missed a 51-yarder just right. So that's a 6-point swing. So he would have had 16 points, but he got me 10. So now it's down to an 11-point projected game, which I will take as a win already, as a moral victory because, I mean, how injured am I? Justin Fields is out. Richardson's out for the entire year now. Connor's still on IR. I got 2 running backs on bye with Damian Pierce and Miles Sanders, if you count that. Thielen, who's a top 3 maybe wide receiver, is out. Nico Collins is on a bye. I had to restructure 3 IDPs and a kicker and a punter. Man, so it's been a weird week. But let's see what I got. Oh, Tom, man. He's got Kenneth Walker III, KW3, great initials. He might put up 50 points. Devontae Adams, he has to have a big game if Brian Hoyer can get him the ball. Can't remember who the Raiders are playing and who their corner will be, but I think it's gonna be a fun game. Again, looks like, oh my God, they're playing the Bears. Well, maybe they won't have to throw the ball. That could get ugly. I do have Tom in this matchup. I mean, he's one of 1 or one of 2 of the hottest teams right now, I will say. But if we could sneak out of this one with a win, I would be absolutely thrilled. But when I looked at my schedule 2 weeks ago and I was, 1 game and 1 win and looking for victories, I penciled this one in as an L because it wasn't looking too pretty. So if I sneak away with one, I'll be very happy.
Sure. I don't see that happening. I got Tom in this one. ESPN's got Tom at a plus 32. But that was originally. Now it is down 255 to 244. Mm-hmm. So like you said, opportunity to sneak away with one.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's do the next.
Are you going with Tom?
I am going with Tom.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure. All right. Sam at Ned. Sam's 2-4, Ned 3-3. That is a headline. Sam's 2-4, Ned's 3-3. Both of those teams at a bit of a crossroads here, facing off. So this is an exciting one as well. I wrote 4 days ago. Interesting note here. This will be the first game since I don't know when that an owner won't have a full roster. Okay, so actually I wrote this 30 minutes ago. So here's stick with me here.
Okay.
Ned has Jamal Williams in his IR slot. He was activated like 3 hours before kickoff in the middle of our night in Saudi Arabia. And so he became active and is locked in to Ned's IR slot as a playable player, right? So Ned is not allowed, per ESPN rules, to make any waiver wire or trade or any kind of acquisition of any kind.
And
from Thursday on.
And look at who his tight end was that he was banking on getting off of getting healthy.
Correct.
Pat Freiermuth, who got put on IR today.
On IR, yeah.
Ooh.
So he reached out and he was like, dude, and like, what are my options here? It's like, no, dude, like I'll go into league managers right now. I'll move the roster. Like this is obviously a perfect opportunity to use league management tools. Couldn't do it. That IR slot is locked. Like a player that has already played, you cannot do anything about it.
Oh, man.
So this brought up a really interesting discussion for Ned and I as a cautionary tale to owners moving forward. If you have someone that's in IR that's out, and if they play Thursday and they're they're good to go, that means you can't make any moves. So ESPN does something that's really tricky, and I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you can pick up whoever you want, no matter what is happening in your IR slot, right? So if you have 2 guys that are questionable in your IR slot, you can still pick up waiver wire acquisitions on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But come Friday, your IR slots have to be settled.
Right.
They have to be out or on IR. So you can't pick up anyone on Friday and Saturday if you have someone that's healthy in your IR slot.
Is that new? That's got to be new this year or last year. Because I definitely remember
I think last year
going to pick up guys. I mean, either last year or the year before on the first day of waiver wires on Wednesday. You couldn't if you had somebody in your IR.
That's correct.
Wow,
they're giving you a little bit of grace, but again, everyone needs to be cognizant of who's on their IR and if they are playing Thursday, because that locks your roster essentially for the rest of the week. So no tight end 2 for Ned this week.
Yikes. Gonna be big.
Yeah. All right. So other questions. Will Detroit go riot? What is that?
Because you spelled Detroit just a little incorrectly, but I actually like the way you spelled it, because instead of Detroit, it's Detriot, and right now the Lions are an absolute riot. So
yeah, they are. Detriot. Will Detriot go full Gibbs and release the beast?
Will
we see Jahmyr Gibbs at full capacity? And we might.
Did you see what their I don't know if it was a coach or front office said yesterday? They were asked, are they going to unleash him? And their answer was, we have to. Their answer was literally like, we have no other option. Like, we would like to still get him into the game with a little bit more progression, like cautious progression, but they're like, we literally have to. So, and I tried to trade for Gibbs this week, and Sam's response, I don't like to, kiss and tell, but Sam's response was essentially like, I can't, like, I have to win this game. And I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting insight there.
Yeah.
Interesting insight. And then will Kyle Pitts be a startable tight end? Like, his trend is startable, and I think that's really interesting. I do have Sam in this matchup. ESPN's got almost a 50 burger separating the two teams, so I'm going to go Sam here. I hate to say it because Ned's peaking at the right time. He's working his tail off, but I think Sam comes away with this game.
Yeah, I agree. I do have Sam in this. I didn't update my notes on this. I was really excited because they both started the Thursday night football punters. And Lou Hedley for the Saints got 4 points, and Logan Cook got 9 points for Ned, which might be the bright spot of his week. And interestingly, Logan points. You could call him that. Logan Cook had 9 points, but he also threw a pass on 4th down, and he fell short of 25 yards to get a point, but he did have a complete pass on 4th down. I mean, I was not aware of this tight end thing, and you add that in, and it's going to be really tough for Ned. And I do feel really bad because I was excited for Pat Freiermuth to become Ned's guy, and the fact that he went on IR within the past 24 hours is really a big bummer, and hopefully he gets him back to get some use out of him, and he'll keep him over the year, I'm sure. But Sam's going to look to rebound and even up the score and make both teams 3 and 4 this week, I think.
Yeah, so we'll be watching that one closely. And so I guess without further ado, this takes us to our final segment, the playoff hunt.
Ooh,
no, wait.
We still got a matchup here.
More.
Yeah,
but wait, there's more.
2 owners starting a Detriot on us if we don't go over this. So we got the last matchup. Last but certainly not least, for multiple reasons. We got Garrett 1-5. Garrett, well, there's a reason we did put it last, I guess. Garrett's 1-5, and he is going on the road to Puyallup. Are they in Puyallup?
Puyallup,
like Washington. Church Pew. Yeah, do the Puyallup.
Now, Tim actually is in Yakima.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Yeah. Okay. How far is Yakima from Puyallup?
Gosh, I should know this. Boy. I just feel bad because I know they'll be listening. Is it 3.5?
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Looks like.
Good Lord! Wow. Cool. Do you go over Chinook Pass?
Well,
I haven't been to Yakima.
I exited out of it. I'm sorry.
But if you ever find yourself in Yakima, everyone will tell you to go to Miners, and I'm going to tell you not to go to Miners. Don't go to Miners.
What is Miners?
Miners is it's a lot like Suzy Q or what was that other one on 71 Business right when you come downtown on your left. Anyways, it's just it's a burger place, but it's become iconic. You can't order food and leave without spending $20. Like, and I'm sure, and this was years ago. I'm telling you, this was 10 years ago. So with inflation, I'm sure it's $50 for a meal there, but it's not worth it. It's overrated.
Interesting. Wow. I'm just
put that on the ticker.
Oh well, don't worry. I'm pulling this up here. We're looking at minors.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. And so this is how minors have survived. Every team that goes and plays in Yakima, that's where they eat. So you've got bus loads of kids eating there every week around the clock.
Big minor burger. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's one of those nostalgic looking things. I love that you brought up Suzy Q. Man.
Yeah.
I forgot about Suzy Q. Anyways, this game. So for Garrett, will this finally be Garrett's rebound game? He got a strong start on Thursday Night Football. He played David Carr. David, man, I can never remember if it's David or Derek Carr.
Derek.
It's Derek Carr?
Derek, I think.
Why do I keep thinking David Carr, his brother? Yeah, Derek Carr was
beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's first game of the Texans' history. That's fine.
Yikes. Man, I didn't realize that. Intrastate battle.
It's Derek.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So good. So Derek Carr. He was projected to have 13 points. He had exceeded 18 points. And then Kamara had he touched the ball, I think, probably like 7. I don't know the details, but he felt like well over half of the touches on that offense. He got 36 points.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
So he had 12 receptions.
Yeah. Is he leading the league in receptions since whatever week he came back? That would be an interesting stat.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt because in week 4 he had 13. He had 2 between the next 2, but anyways.
And targets. How many targets has he gotten? I don't know if they show that on just the ESPN spread, but
no.
But anyways, off to a strong start. And this, I'll finish up with my thoughts and we'll talk about the spread. But Russell Wilson has a pretty good matchup. I'm just saying this because I'm really down on my Packers right now. But he's going to be facing a Packers defense that might not have Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes, or 2 starting corners, or without Devondre Campbell in the middle. Quay Walker's not super healthy, so inside linebackers. So he's got a pretty decent shot at getting in a shootout with the Packers and finally getting a good game out of Russ Wilson. We'll see. But then bye weeks are terrible for him. He's got Burrow and Dak on a bye. He's got Pollard, his RB1, on a bye. T. Higgins and Garrett Wilson on a bye. And he's actually forced to start A.J. Dillon at running back in this game.
And I tried to make a trade so he wouldn't have to start A.J. Dillon. Didn't take me up on it. So we'll see how that plays out.
Interesting.
I tried to give him Matthew Stafford as well. 2 guys he could have played this week.
Wow. That'll be an interesting thing to watch. Let's revisit that next week because that could be pretty interesting.
Please do.
But likewise,
because if AJ Dillon might not get that many touches if Aaron Jones is healthy.
Maybe we'll see. Aaron Jones still I think he logged a full practice, but he still listed as questionable. There's 9 questionable players for the Packers. It is crazy to me that Aaron Jones would not play this week after this many weeks, but we'll see.
Did you hear that he re-injured his hamstring a couple of weeks back? That finally came out.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense because he was trending towards playing that week. And likewise, so Tim is without Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook if you're keeping score at home, but he's having to make some amends at his running back lineup, but. And then, he's starting Jared Goff over Kirk Cousins, so making a little NFC North swap quarterback. But ESPN had this initially at a 15-point spread, and now it's a 7-point spread. And I think this is, I said, not last but not least, because I actually think this is a pretty good matchup. And Tim is a bit wounded from last week, and I think Garrett is hungry-ish. I don't know. We'll see how hungry he is, but this is probably one of his best shots just from a pre-game kind of perspective with the point spread for him to get a W on this one. So I do have Tim, all that to say, I do have Tim in this game, but I'm hopeful for Garrett in this game.
Let's hope Tim gets TJ Watt off his bench. But other than that, I think Garrett's got a really good opportunity here. Now obviously we know Thursday night is significant for both teams, but man, Garrett Garrett might be Tim.
So yeah, he does. You're right. He does have TJ Watt, but he's starting Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb. How does he have? He has
Chubb had
yeah. Chubb had a pretty
Chubb
good
went
game.
off last week.
Yeah. But TJ Watt's the number 2 down lineman right now, or defensive end right now. So yeah, it looks like we all got Tim. You, me, and ESPN all have Tim in this one. So that's it.
All right. Now, without further ado, let us move on to the playoff standings. My favorite segment here. Okay, so takes. Tops all everything evens out finally, right? So we've had these weird through 3 games, through 4 games, through 5 games. We had this weird points first number 1, like last week. No, 2 weeks ago, I was the highest scoring team in the league, but I was in 3rd place because of record, right? Yeah. So now when you have a 4-way tie at 4-2, that allows for the 4 playoff teams essentially to be decided or at least seeded by points forced. So we see I returned to the number 1 spot, and I've just traded that with Tim the last 4 weeks. Thomas is number 2, and again, that comes down to points forced. And the margin there is small, separated by about 30 points. And then we'll get into the tiers, rounding out the top 4, Tim in 3rd, Dan in 4th. And that, again, correlates with the scoring of those teams in our league. And then in 5th place, one place on the outside looking in, Ned, which is interesting because he's point force number 7. So he is not scoring a lot of points, but has gotten lucky with his record. He is 1 win away from knocking at the door of the playoffs. Sam, 2-4, is in 6th place. Keifer, 2-4 at 7th. And then Garrett, of course, 1-5 is that right? Yeah, that's right. 1-5 in 8th place. All right. So the tiers, I think, is go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say something that was not lost on me during my matchup was once I realized I was going to get the win, in my head, I had the number 51 points. I had to outscore Sam. I saw Sam was going to, the outcome of Sam's game. I had to outscore Sam by 51 points or something like that to overtake him for 6, and I outscored him by 40. So he's got me by 9 points for that 6th spot. And that slim, unimpressive win that he got last week and pulled it away. I'd been right on the outside looking in 5th place. So.
Yeah. And so what I did is I just, very subjectively, I think it could be argued that there are four tiers, right?
Okay.
We've got the top tier, and that's Tom and I. There's 32 points between the 2 of us. And so that's close. And then from that, get this. This is interesting. The number of points between Tom and I and the rest of the league is 130 points.
Mm.
So I think that's a tier, right? That's a difference between that's a significant difference between Tom and I and the rest of the league. And then 60 points separates Tim and Dan. Mm. So some people might argue that Tim and Dan are in separate tiers.
Mm.
Yeah. And then so that's the top tier, Tom and Jake, the top tier, Tim and Dan. And then we go to top tier to wishful tier, Sam, Keifer, and Ned. I think those 3 teams are in a tier. And this one is as sound as the top tier. This is amazing. These 3 teams through 6 games are separated by 24 points. Yeah. I think that's remarkable. Mm-hmm. So they are 80 points back from Dan. So that's a sizable difference between those 2 tiers. But then within that tier of Sam, Keifer, and Ned, there's 24 teams or 24 points to separate them. So that margin is actually closer than Thomas and I's margin of 32 points.
That is
that
was really interesting.
Yeah. Those 3 teams are playing significantly close. And then finally, the helpless tier, the owner with the most tiers, Garrett, in a league of his own at the bottom. He is almost 100 points back from the second lowest scoring team.
Ouch.
Ned. So those are the 4 tiers that I have come up with. I'm happy to have a guest argue with me about these tiers next week. But
yeah, I do want to say this. While you were talking, making really good points, I did take tier 1 and tier 2, and I took your points for. You threw out the term statistical significance, and I want to keep us accountable on this team.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I went ahead and I did calculate whether or not
the
this
old
was
t
a
test.
statistic. Yeah, the old unpaired t-test.
Sure.
You got the old two-tailed p-value, and you're right. So it depends on what you set your p-value at. If you're going to set your p-value at less than 0.05, you are correct.
Which I think we should.
Which I would. I would argue that with a 95% confidence interval, we set this p-value at less than 0.05.
95.
And
95.
It's a solid. Yeah, we don't need to be. I mean, what we're going to set at 99%? Come on.
No.
It's 7 weeks, 6 weeks.
Correct.
So you're right. There is a statistical significance between tier 1 and tier 2 at 0.037.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Not surprised there.
No.
Not surprised there. I'm glad you went with the t-test instead of the z-test.
Right.
Which is my favorite statistical test. Right up there with the
old chi-squared. I know you've been a chi-squared fan.
Wilcox, yes, Wilcox squared. Thank you. It was right on the tip of my tongue. I'm so glad that I don't teach IB psychology anymore. So I don't need to know any of that.
I hate statistics, but
yeah,
I love it. I wanted to keep us accountable, and you know what? You were right. Statistical significance.
I'm glad you did. All right. That's all I've got. We're going to end on that high note. That's all I've got.
Cool. I like it. I like that we continue to kind of take a look. Just a general. I mean, I don't disagree with you on any of the points you made. I would agree that, man, you're spot on. I think there's definitely a difference between the 1 and 2, and then the 3 and 4. I mean, statistically, you showed, and then the 3 on the outside looking in. And I mean, truthfully, unless Ned just blows away Dan in this week, and they both end up 4 and 3, Ned probably won't jump into the playoffs because of that point differential. Yeah. And so it's unlikely that things change this week from a playoff hunt standpoint. But I'd have to look back to the history and waste a bunch of time doing it to see if we've ever been this close. I mean, after 6 weeks, there are 7 of the 8 teams within 2 games of each other. Throw out the point differential, but the fact that everything is so close, and we got half the season to play. Anything could swing if you get wins. So I think it keeps the 3 on the outside looking in. It keeps them hopeful, and it doesn't make anybody at the top comfortable.
No, and I like the fact that we're looking at obviously the records, but then also the points for us, because it looks like there's a whole lot of parity in this league, right? But then you look at it a little bit deeper, and if Dan and I are both 4 and 2, and I'm 5 and 1 against him, then that means that things are still going to shift if those things remain constant. So,
right.
And we're playing each other, so I'm looking forward to that matchup.
This is the time for you put all these numbers behind you and see if that propels you to solidifying your point in the fact that, hey, I'm top of tier 1. Dan's bottom of tier 2. I should have beat him 5 times out of 6. The points agree with me in the 220 point spread. Let's see how these teams do. And this is a big opportunity for Dan to be like, you know what? Screw your numbers. I'm going to take W.
Yeah, my team. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully McCaffrey plays. That'd be nice. Hopefully Aaron Jones plays. That'd be nice.
Big question marks.
Yeah, and Roschon Johnson, I was hoping to play, especially because Dan dropped him earlier. That's why I have Roschon, and so I was actually hoping to play him. And now that I actually look at it, Jeff Wilson has been activated. Mm-hmm. He will play, and that's another thing that Ned and I talked about. Of course, just because the team designates a player to return to practice doesn't mean that player is going to be on the active roster.
It's 21 days.
Right, a 21-day window to activate that player on the active roster, or that player then goes back to IR for another 4 weeks. So things to keep in mind when you're working with the IR on Thursday night.
And Kyler Murray activated off of the IR, but not quite yet practicing.
Yep.
Man, what was I gonna say? Oh, for your running backs. Yeah, your running backs. So I don't think Christian McCaffrey practiced, but they're hopeful that he's
No.
gonna play. I think.
Yeah, and again, it's a Monday, so I think they still have one day to practice. But he's already told Kyle Shanahan, don't change anything and don't take out anything from the game plan, and prepare as if I'm going to play, which I thought is a really interesting thing for a player to tell a coach. But if there is a player on the planet that can do that,
Yeah,
it's Christian McCaffrey, right?
that's
Hey,
weird.
coach.
That's bizarre.
Hey, don't take anything out.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Let me tell you how to do your job
keep
here.
it. Yeah. I mean, and so like, what if he does? What if he decides? That's just awkward.
It's
Anyways.
weird. The other thing to note is that Roshan Johnson, if he would have come back this week, he did have a long week, but he would have come back within 1 week of his concussion.
No, that was last week.
Oh, it was last week. Oh, so this is his second
2 weeks.
Oh,
yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So that's obviously something now. And you did a great job with the segment on the 13% and getting out in the first week. He had a 10-day window to get out. Didn't make it.
Right.
But now that he hasn't gotten out the second, now you're starting to worry. Like, is there something going on here? There are lingering symptoms here that he's not going to be able to play for quite some time.
Right.
And this is all while Khalil Herbert's on IR. So I mean, it's a sad situation because he had an opportunity to really take the reins in the running back room in Chicago, and he's been so far unable to do so.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent. Well, last thing, we hope people listen. You could find us on Spotify. This will probably be up tomorrow on Spotify, but we'll put it out to the league on YouTube that it is official. Week 7, fun games, good matchups. Can't wait to recap them.
Can't wait.
And best of luck to you. Hope you can keep Dan, Dan down, drop him down at tier 3.
Oh, would love it.
Okay.
All right.
Good luck to you. We'll see you.
Yep.